Damon Salvatore is easily one of the most well-recognized characters from the Vampire Diaries. He's also, arguably, the most popular character from the hit TV show. I love the Vampire Diaries, particularly the first 3 to 4 seasons, and Damon is a huge part of my love for that show. He's an amazingly entertaining character to watch on screen. However, even with my love for this show and his character, I cannot help but feel every time I rewatch that the writers made some pretty critical mistakes as far as his story arc and character development goes. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to sit down and imagine what if I was one of the writers on the show? How would I have written Damon instead? Hi, my name is Laura from Your Little Sisters Productions, and I love talking about movies and TV shows and storytelling in general. Shout out to Lindsay Kay, she is the artist of our avatars. And also, while you're here, you might as well give that like button a push if you like this video. Hit the subscribe button to see more videos like this from us. Damon Salvatore in the first season of The Vampire Diaries is at his peak, in my personal opinion. I love the arc he goes through in this first season, and season one is by far my favorite season to rewatch. Damon makes a great first antagonist slash villain. He's mysterious, devious, terrifying, and his personal connection with Stefan actually makes the situation all the more haunting. They also do this thing, which they don't really do past the first few episodes, where Damon is able to control fog and have a crow appear right before he does. And as much as I love seeing Damon be the first villain and Stefan and Elena have to go up against him, I also love the growth that we start to see in him near the end of the season. Even when Damon is single-mindedly doing everything he can to get Catherine out of the tomb, and he's willing to do just about whatever it takes to do so, he starts to grow closer to Elena and regrow his bond with Stefan in the meantime. It's Elena's compassion and recognition of whatever humanity Damon has left in him at that point that really gets him to start thinking and feeling for other people other than himself. It starts to heal the rift that was created between him and Stefan, and he starts to truly care and be protective over Elena. The season one finale is one of my favorite episodes for Damon. He says thank you to Bonnie for dispelling the device that could have potentially harmed him and Stefan. He also acts in this episode and has acted previously as a sort of older brother figure to Jeremy. There are episodes before this where we see them playing video games together, talking together. He's giving Jeremy advice about girls. And in the season one finale episode, Damon goes up to Jeremy's room to talk to him about Anna's death and offer to take away his memories. Jeremy tells him, "You think you took away the pain before, but you didn't. I still feel sad and alone." And then Jeremy asks Damon what it's like being a vampire and being able to turn off your humanity. Damon answers, and you can see that Damon is truly, sincerely trying to do the right thing here by Jeremy. He tells him honestly what happened with Anna and how, for the first time in a long time, he felt the desire to help someone else, but he couldn't. And then he offers to help take away Jeremy's suffering the only way he knows how, through compulsion. And then he listens to Jeremy and answers his question about being a vampire honestly. When I first started watching The Vampire Diaries and saw this first season with no idea of what was coming after, I always viewed Damon treating Jeremy as almost a do-over and being a good big brother. Damon feels as though he failed in his and Stefan's brotherly relationship. He wasn't a good enough big brother to Stefan, and now they've kind of ruined it with all these years of animosity between them. And Jeremy is this kind of fresh new start. Jeremy's this troubled young kid in desperate need of direction and mentorship and a life's purpose. And Damon starts to sort of step into that role, at least in the first season, and particularly in the finale of the first season. Another thing Damon does in this episode is make a move on Elena, his brother's girl. Which, making a move on someone you already know is in a relationship, especially with your own brother, is not the greatest or most moral move. But it does show that Damon has truly started to move on from Catherine and that he has started opening up. I personally really love the growth that we see in season one finale Damon. He's come such a long way from the first episode. He found a group of people he's willing to protect and be kind to and consider as his friends. And then comes season two, episode one. Now, before you get on me, I do like the majority of this episode. I like the introduction of Catherine. I think she makes a great season two antagonist. But the one thing that I will never get over, and that, in my opinion, changes one of the best parts of Damon's growth into one of his biggest faults for the rest of the show, is when Damon snaps Jeremy's neck. If I was the head writer or showrunner, never in a million years would I have had Damon do that right then at that moment. And that's not to say I don't understand what they were going for. I understand what they were going for. They were trying to show that Catherine makes Damon so crazy and unhinged that he would go and do this unfathomable evil thing, and in front of the woman he started to fall in love with, no less. But I still think that snapping Jeremy's neck was a step too far in that moment. And not just because he's Elena's brother, but because he has a relationship of his own with Jeremy at that point. It seems as though they had started becoming friends and, dare I say it again, a mentor of sorts to Jeremy, like a do over of being a better big brother. I think that there could have been something else that Damon could have done to show the influence Catherine had over him, that showed him going crazy because Catherine is back and messing with his head and playing mind games with him, without going so far as to legitimately think he's ending the life of Jeremy in that moment, and then just continue on. He didn't give Jeremy any vampire blood before snapping his neck or anything. He truly thought he was ending him for good. And I think that was the first big mistake the writers made with Damon at that point in the story. It took his redemption arc back a step too far, in my opinion. There is such a thing, of course, as having characters make progress and then go backwards. That's very common in life as well, but I just think this was a step too far back. Especially because he and Elena do eventually fall in love and have a relationship with each other. And that's just weird. He snapped her brother's neck, and she eventually falls in love with him. But it's also weird because from that point on, Damon treats Jeremy like utter trash. He really does. He doesn't see or acknowledge Jeremy's value. He doesn't talk to him nicely ever. He disregards him at every possible opportunity. I'm sorry. I could personally never be in a relationship with someone who treated my sibling the way Damon does from that moment on. It is horrendous treatment and behavior. And part of me wonders if the writers saw this sort of brotherly friendship bond building going on between Damon and Jeremy and didn't want it to happen. And instead of just fizzling it out, if that's not what they wanted to happen, they just decided to do a 180 with them. Don't get me wrong, I do love the dynamic between Damon and Stefan, and I love when the show focuses on them and their brotherly bond. So I wonder if the writers just felt as though having Jeremy in there would pull away too much focus from Damon and Stefan, and instead of just backing away from it slowly, they just have Damon be a complete jerk to Jeremy. And it's so clear that Jeremy is looking for direction, any direction in his life, because he's so lost. Damon even points that out to him on multiple occasions. And he still is just a complete jerk to him and pushes him away, shoves him aside, doesn't give him a second thought. And Elena gets with Damon after all of that. And I just, ugh. Snapping Jeremy's neck is more than enough, but add on the way that Damon treats him after that, and it's just abysmal. Again, if I were the writer on Vampire Diaries and I was in charge of Damon's arc, I wouldn't have had him snap his neck or treat him like that afterward, especially knowing that he and Elena would get together at some point. At least, not treat him like that forever. Maybe there could have been a story arc where Damon and Jeremy didn't get along and they're not talking, or when they do talk, they're rude to each other, but not always. I also don't like that in the start of season 2, they kind of start isolating Damon from the rest of the core group of characters. In season 1, you see him connecting with more people than just Elena and Stefan. He starts connecting a little bit with Bonnie and, of course, Jeremy. There are opportunities there for him to apologize and make things right with Caroline and have a grudging truce, if not eventual friendship, grow between them. Look, the whole thing with Damon and Caroline is a discussion and video in and of itself, but just very briefly, I still think we could have gotten to a point in this show where Damon would be able to make amends with Caroline and face consequences for his actions and show growth, more than that one scene we get where she pushes him down and calls him out for it. We don't really get much more than that, so it makes sense for Caroline to feel the way she does about Damon for as long as she does. I just think that in 8 seasons of the show, Damon could have gotten to a place where real amends could have been made. The writers take this path of isolating Damon from everyone except Elena and Stefan and for a little while Alaric, But it gets to the point where Damon seems to only do good things for Elena. He's only nice to Elena. The only time he makes the right choice is if Elena is somehow involved or pushing him to do so. And he will protect Elena above everyone and everything else, no matter how Elena feels about it, no matter what she wants or who she would rather protect. Damon will always protect Elena above everyone, even Stefan at times. Which Stefan also wants to protect Elena above his own life, but Stefan is not always willing to put others' lives above Elena's, depending on the circumstances, and he's willing to help others. Case in point, the time when Elena and Matt are in the car underwater, and Elena is conscious and refuses to let Stefan take her out of the car before Matt, and he follows what she wants. Although why a vampire with super strength and super speed can't carry two people out of the water at the same time, I do not know. Obviously, they wanted the car going into the water and her drowning to be the way Elena dies and becomes a vampire because it mimics the way her parents went. But Damon would never. Damon would grab Elena while she was kicking and screaming and trying to fight him off and drag her up to the surface before he would ever even think of helping Matt or going back for Matt or doing anything of the sort for Matt. I'm not saying that Damon is right, Stefan is wrong. What I'm saying is that Damon, while it's nice that he puts Elena above himself and wants to protect her, sometimes takes it too far. They start to make it seem as though the only time Damon's ever going to be good, and the only person or thing Damon can ever be good for, is Elena. And he doesn't care about anyone else enough to want to change or try to be a better person. And I don't really like that. One, because it makes their relationship when they first get together very awkward and kind of aggravating. Caroline is always talking against them. Bonnie is always talking against them. Stefan, when he finally gets out of the safe, is not a huge fan of them. Jeremy, of course, is not a huge fan. No one is a fan of their relationship. At least no one who was alive and around Elena at this time. She is constantly having to defend Damon and stave off attacks against her boyfriend from her friends and family. And if they had just spent some time in the earlier seasons, especially seasons 2 and 3, with Damon getting to know and connect with other people in that friend group and form some sort of friendship or relationship with them, and letting him show moments of softness and vulnerability with people other than Elena, like with Jeremy in the season 1 finale, then I think it would have been so much better. Some of my favorite Damon moments are, again, from season 1 when we see him start to branch out, when he thanks Bonnie, when he tries to help Jeremy, etc. Those are not moments with Elena. Those are moments where Damon himself decides to do something kind. And he never tells Elena about how he tried to help Jeremy. And I know it's Catherine, technically on the porch right after, but he thinks she's Elena, and he doesn't tell her about what had just occurred. It was a moment of Damon truly feeling compassion for someone and wanting to help alleviate their suffering out of the goodness of his heart. Like he told Jeremy, he wanted to help Anna, and he didn't know why. It was because he was starting to reconnect with his humanity, which he had avoided doing for so long that it seemed new and foreign to him again. And I just wish the show had explored more of that side of Damon. As I said near the beginning of the video, I love The Vampire Diaries, but if I'm honest, I'm more familiar with the first 4 seasons of the show than the later seasons. I do know that Damon does eventually become best friends with Bonnie. In fact, that was one of my favorite parts when I was watching the later seasons, was seeing their friendship dynamic. Imagine if we got to see more of that earlier on, and not just with Bonnie, but with some of the other core members of the main group. So, as much as I love Damon and the Vampire Diaries, I cannot help but feel a bit frustrated with his arc. And I pin it all back to that one crucial decision in season 2, episode 1, snapping Jeremy's neck, and Damon's sudden 180 in how he treats and talks to Jeremy. And the fact that the writers have Elena and Damon get together when he's so mean to her brother and her friends, and with so much unresolved between Damon and her friends at that point in time, it just boggles my mind. I'm not saying we take away all of Damon's fault or his proclivity to act rashly or any of his other story arcs. What I am saying is I wish the writers had given him more than Elena for us to see his humane side. I wish they had given him more than Elena to give him something to try for, to be good for, to want to protect. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but I just truly think changing these kind of small things throughout the first few seasons would have given us a much more satisfying arc to Damon's story and a lot more heartache when he falls. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe to see more videos from us in the future. Check out our Patreon starting at $5 a month if you're so inclined, along with our original audio dramas here on the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.